If your raised bed looks lush on the surface, but yields keep dropping year after year, there's a silent killer at work beneath your plants. And most gardeners never realize it until it's too late. You might be adding compost, watering regularly and rotating crops. But if your soil is dying from the inside out, none of it will matter. The truth is, the number one raised bed mistake that destroys soil health isn't what's missing. It's what's trapped. It's overbuilding your bed like a box instead of treating it like a living ecosystem. That mistake chokes your soil, suffocates your microbes, and drains your fertility faster than any pest or drought. Let's break it down and fix it for good, because once you understand this principle, your soil will come back to life and your yields will skyrocket. Raised beds were meant to breathe, not suffocate. When people first started building raised beds, they were meant to be loose, breathable, and deeply connected to the natural soil below. Over time, however, modern gardening trends turned them into glorified wooden bathtubs, lined with plastic, sealed with hardware cloth, and packed with too perfect soil mixes. While these setups look tidy, they destroy what makes soil truly alive: gas exchange, microbial migration, and deep root interaction. Healthy soil is not static. It breathes. Air moves in, carbon dioxide moves out, and water cycles through microchannels created by roots and worms. But when you trap that living system in a bottom-sealed box, all that activity grinds to a halt. The result is what many gardeners now experience without realizing the cause. Compacted lower layers, anaerobic, meaning oxygen-deprived zones and roots that turn brown halfway down because they've hit a dead zone. You might think your plants are just shallow-rooted, but that's not the truth. They're struggling to survive in an artificial environment that cuts them off from the underground ecosystem. That's why your compost seems to disappear, why you keep needing to refertilize, and why worms mysteriously vanish over time. The problem isn't what you're adding, it's the system you've built. To understand why this happens, let's talk about what's actually happening in your raised bed on a microbial level. Beneath the surface, trillions of bacteria, fungi, nematodes and protozoa form a vast nutrient exchange network called the soil food web. These organisms depend on airflow, moisture balance, and connection to the subsoil to thrive. When you isolate your raised bed from the earth, you're cutting off that exchange entirely. Plastic liners, landscape fabric, or even compacted clay bottoms under your bed stop beneficial fungi and bacteria from moving upward. They also trap excess water after heavy rains, creating anaerobic conditions that lead to sour smells, root rot, and the death of your most valuable microbial allies. It's the equivalent of locking a greenhouse full of plants without windows. Everything looks fine for a while, then the system collapses. This is why, after 2 or 3 seasons, gardeners notice their soil losing structure and fertility, even if they keep adding organic matter. The soil biology isn't recycling nutrients anymore. It's suffocating. The solution here is really quite simple, but it does mean we have to reverse the modern perfect bed mindset. Raised beds, you see, should not be sealed at the bottom. Instead, they need to have full contact with the native ground below. Now, if you're worried about pests like moles or gophers, just use galvanized mesh with large openings at least half an inch or so, that allows worms, roots and water to pass through freely. And, never use plastic liners or weed barriers beneath. If your bed is already built and sealed, don't panic. You can still save it. What you'll want to do is remove any lining or fabric and then aerate the bottom layer by loosening compacted soil with a digging fork. After that, introduce living compost, not sterile bagged mix, but active compost full of microbes, worms and fungal threads. You can also sprinkle just a little bit of soil from a healthy patch of ground nearby to reintroduce native microorganisms. Within a season, you'll notice your soil texture begin to change. It will start holding moisture evenly again, and roots will grow deeper naturally. One powerful method, borrowed from regenerative agriculture, is the living root bridge. So you plant a deep-rooted cover crop like daikon radish or clover in your raised bed at the end of the season. Their roots will punch through the lower layers, reopening the biological channels that allow air and microbes to flow between your bed and the ground. And when the roots die back, they'll leave behind natural tunnels that worms and water can use. This single step can restore a suffocated bed faster than any mechanical tool, honestly. The health of your raised bed? Well, it depends on biological balance, not fancy ingredients. Another part of the problem comes from relying too heavily on soil mixes that are technically rich, but, biologically empty. Bagged composts and those so-called raised bed blends are often sterile, pasteurized or depleted of living organisms by the time you use them. They might look good, but honestly, they lack the microbial structure needed to maintain balance. That's why even the most expensive raised bed soils, eventually collapse into hard, lifeless muck. The fix here is ongoing biological input. Regularly add fresh, living compost or compost tea. Use mulch from untreated wood chips, shredded leaves or straw to feed the fungal layer at the surface. And every few weeks, just top-dress your bed with worm castings to keep nutrient cycling active. Now, the goal isn't to feed your plants directly, it's to feed the organisms that feed your plants. Once your soil food web stabilizes, fertility becomes, self-sustaining. When your soil breathes again, everything changes. After fixing my own raised bed using these methods, I measured soil respiration using a simple DIY test, basically capturing the carbon dioxide released from microbial activity. Within 2 months of removing the plastic liner and adding living compost, soil activity tripled. The difference in plant growth was immediate. Roots grew deeper, watering frequency dropped by half, and, yields increased without adding more fertilizer. The moment your soil reconnects to the earth beneath it, nature takes over again. Microbes return, worms rebuild structure, and your raised bed transforms from a static container into a living system. That's the key difference between gardening on the soil and gardening with it. If you've been struggling with declining soil quality in your raised beds, this is your wake-up call. Don't let modern shortcuts rob your garden of its vitality. Tear down the barriers, Bring your beds back to life and let the underground world do its work. If you found this breakdown valuable, don't forget to subscribe to Hydra Haven for more hands-on guides on restoring soil health, reviving ancient growing wisdom, and mastering regenerative gardening. Share this with a gardener who's been fighting stubborn soil problems. Because the fix might just be as simple as letting the earth breathe again.